Very pleased today to be with agcareers.com and careersandfood.com, partnering with OFA and showing obviously the ways to connect with specific jobs in the industry. We'll start off with our guest speakers this morning and welcoming Jennifer Wright from the Canadian Ag Human Resource Council. She grew up working on her family's dairy or equipment dealership and helping on the farm in southwestern Ontario. She has worked in the field of human resources and development for more than 20 years, and she has also conducted research in relation to the advancement of women in agriculture in Canada. She holds a Master's of Business Admin from Royal Roads University, an Honours Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, and is a member of the Canadian Human Resource Professional Association. We also have with us today, and we thank her, Nicole Gallace. Nicole was a search consultant recruiter for food manufacturing sector for almost 10 years. She then started Food Grads. Food Grads is an interactive platform for food and beverage industry focused on closing the gap between students, recent graduates, educators, and employers in the food and processing arena. Nicole is a young individual that's a loving mother of two teenage boys, and obviously is here today to share with her perspective on job descriptions. So thank you to you both. We will get started right away today with going through the information on how to attract the right candidates, and I will hand it over to you, Nicole. Thank you.
Early Monday, I have to unmute before we get started. So attracting the right candidate. So I can speak to this from a couple of perspectives. As Kathryn mentioned, recruiting in the industry for almost 10 years, I got to work with a lot of mid to senior level employees. But in the last 4 years, my focus has been totally on students and grads. So, you know, I can't stress enough the importance of the job description. I would say that I can certainly talk to the student and grad part initially, that they are very literal. So when it comes to putting together the job description, I would certainly have various people read through what you've put together for the job description and look at it through a different lens, you know, in terms of removing complex language, jargon, acronyms, that sort of thing that will create barriers, certainly for English as a second language candidates, and also helps those who read it know exactly what to expect when they apply. I wanted to touch a little bit briefly on knowing that HR often isn't a huge department for a lot of the food processes, in fact, that I work with. So I understand the constraints around putting together job descriptions, and I think a lot of the time the same job descriptions are utilized over and over, and I understand why that happens, but I think you have to be very mindful of what that does and how that affects attracting the right individual. You know, I think it's really important to include the qualifications that you absolutely need, not necessarily a laundry list of you know, nice to have skills, abilities, that sort of thing. You need to get really clear on the qualifications that you're looking for and what you need. You know, is an MBA absolutely required, or could someone with a college diploma do the same job? And I would certainly say, or equivalent in areas where you are flexible. The more detail you can provide on the job description, the more likely you are to attract the right candidate, as well as things like benefits and salary, all that good stuff, which I know Jen's going to go into a little bit more later on. So I guess my spot here is just to really emphasize how important it is. And from even a mid to senior level recruit that you might be doing, when I was recruiting for the industry, I would put together a success profile and help employers really narrow in on what they're looking for, because again, the job description might be quite different to what you're actually looking for. And I used to find that we'd go through a process and it might get to sort of second or third stage of interviews, which you're talking 3 or 4 months into the process. And then somebody from a different department might say, well, the person needs to have this, this, and this. And that really needs to be figured out right at the beginning. So I think having all the hiring committee on board, anyone that, stakeholders, have them all on board, have them all read the job description, make sure that you really are clear on what you're looking for. And, things like what are the challenges, what are the technical problems that they might have to solve within the first 3 or 6 months. These types of things really hone in on what you need this person to do as soon as they start, so that you ensure that right back to the beginning that the job description reflects that. We could talk about it in the next slide, but it's expensive to hire and train. So why does it matter? As we said, it's so important and crucial that you get the right person on board. Not only because they might leave. I mean, that's a bad reputation that potentially they're going to leave. Certainly, the younger generation, they hit social media straight away and could be sharing information that you don't necessarily want them to share. It could be tough to hire. So really get clear, I would say, on the job description, but even after that. So in terms of, the onboarding process, you need to be really clear on what they're doing, who they should meet, the information they need to be successful the first day, the first week. Again, we can talk about onboarding a little bit later, but it really does. It's all encompassing right from the beginning, and the job description is that first sort of window into your organization. Whether you're posting jobs on job boards, or whether you're using a recruiter and encouraging people to apply via a third party, or they're going to your website, it's all a first impression of your organization. So so get really clear. And the last thing I want to mention, certainly it's a timely subject, is things around, like, for example, your diversity and inclusion statement. Let's get creative, move away from the blanket sort of statement that makes it look like you've just checked a box. I would get really clear that you are an equal opportunity employer, that you are encouraging Indigenous people, people identifying as LGBTQ, etc. You really need to get clear, veterans, disabilities, mention it so people can see themselves and see that they're welcome to apply to your position. The job description, I can't stress enough, is the first step to hiring the right candidate.
So we've just had actually a question come in, Nicole, if you don't mind answering it. Can you give us an example of equal opportunity creativity that you mentioned? How would you obviously be able to articulate that?
I would be, if it was my organization, as I mentioned, get clear on the wording. Don't just do that blanket statement, we're an equal opportunity employer. I would certainly mention the different groups, because again, it shows that you are inviting them to apply. You're accommodating them through the application process. And I would also, one thing you can do via your website, again, share stories. You can, it's one thing to say it, but are you truly living it and doing it? And I'm sure if you are, there'll be individuals within your organization that could share a story, maybe write a blog, something that you can, show on your website, that's authentic, that's real. We don't just say this. Look at our workforce. I think now it's been a really telling time with the Black Lives Matter movement. How many people were using the hashtag and using it on social media, and then people were really showing organizations up and putting the lens back on them and saying, okay, you believe this, show us how many people of color you have in your organization or in the boardroom. I think it's really important to walk the walk as well, and you need, going forward for sure, absolutely crucial to hire, certainly the next generation. You have to show that it's not just lip service. I can talk about the research that's been done on millennials and Gen Z. It's not just a case of throwing up a company statement. They will dig deeper, and they have the tools to do it. So whether they reach out to people via LinkedIn to see if what you're saying is true, they'll find out. And all it takes is to seem like you're not being 100% truthful, and you'll have a problem on your hands. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. I think being genuine, honest, and obviously upfront and clearly communicate what obviously you're hoping to do with your diverse work group is so important. So thank you. That was really good.
So thanks so much, Nicole. You really set up the importance of job descriptions and the value and how they really impact not just hiring, but helping guide the retention side of things as well. So now when we start to look at who is your ideal candidate, I think this is a really important thing to be doing. You have your job description, you may understand what you're looking for as far as job responsibilities, qualifications, but you also need to give some thought to who's going to fit best in your company culture, what characteristics will they have, and what type of person's going to fit well within your organization. Matching those job responsibilities and the qualifications, of course, but also the company culture. And so when we look at things like developing the job description, some things that you want to think about is what's in it for them. So put yourself in the candidate's position and they're reading your job description. What are they going to see in it that is in it for them and make them want to apply? So things like, what will they get to do? What are they going to learn? What will they accomplish while they're working with you? Who are they going to be working with? And how are they going to be recognized or rewarded? So these are all really important things to think about, and it helps if you have those questions in mind when you're reviewing your job description. You can help yourself ensure that that description is going to be attractive to the right candidates that they're looking to apply. So in that job description, what are some of the things that you should be including? You want to be looking at job description specifics. So eggcareers.com did a candidate survey, and in that survey, candidates responded that they believe job responsibilities was the most important piece of information that's in a job posting. So really, again, what am I going to be doing? What am I going to be responsible for? As well as location and salary, but they were of lower importance. And they also responded that having a good in-depth but easy to read description was a good way to encourage them to apply, because they had a better idea of what the job was all about and what they were applying for as well. You also want to give lots of thought to the job title. Nicole mentioned a little bit about making sure that you're putting together words that are attractive to people that aren't already in your organization. And so when you think about that job title, make sure that it's clear, it's understandable, that it is generic enough that someone that has never been in your organization is going to understand, and that it's something that would come up in a keyword search as job seekers are online looking for jobs that they may be interested in. You also want to make sure that your company description is really reflective of the type of work environment that you have. You want to share a little bit of history. For example, if you're a farm operation that has been around, through a few generations, that type of history is great to share. If you're a newer operation that's just getting going, again, good to share, because depending on what people are looking for, they're going to have a good idea of the type of environment that they're coming into. Larger organizations may be more structured, smaller operations may be less structured and have be asking employees to do a number of things and less tied to a really narrow job description. So having that type of information in your company description, as well as a bit about your culture and your location, is going to be very helpful in giving a good picture of what type of environment people are applying to work in.
So we've just had a question come in, because I think this hit a nerve in the regards to perhaps we have people that have actually applied to jobs too. So how long should a job description be? What is too long and what is too short? And how do you, advise whether it's a farming operation, a food processing group, or obviously a business either in food or agriculture. How do you guide them with what is the right length and detail to have included?
So I think that can be a little bit tricky, and it really depends on the platform where you're putting your information out. So some platforms that you have that you're advertising in, you may need to be a bit shorter and concise. And then, you know, that might link to the longer job description that's on your website, for example. But, you know, I think a one-page job description is usually fairly good for online. I don't know, Nicole, if you have seen anything different than that. I do know detail is great, but if it's 4 pages long, it might lose your reader.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you do have the restraints like you mentioned, the templates. I would say though, more information is better than less. I think if you have the opportunity to share more information, to sort of leave it up to the applicant to fill in the blanks is somewhat dangerous. Again, to touch on retention and sort of after the hire, I have heard a few incidences where people get upset if they think they are entering into a job and the responsibilities were this, and then they start the job and other responsibilities are loading onto them, and you know, that can certainly lead to an issue and then potentially leaving. So again, I think it's really important through the initial process, starting with the job description, to make sure you're very clear on what the job is and not load a bunch of things on. Even in the interview process, you could, you know, candidates might drop off because they were like, well, this isn't what I signed up for, this isn't what I thought. So,
which actually, that's a good lead into the next question that's come through, which is, how do you show company culture in a job description?
You know, I think you want to give a little bit of a description of what it's like to work day to day in that environment. You might want to highlight some of the things that happen, like, you know, for example, if every Friday you have a team lunch, if, you know, you have an opportunity to get together in the summer with families, like things like that you're doing within your environment, you probably want to share that. It's a good description of what it's like. If you are you know, have things like lunch and learns and are encouraging ongoing professional development, you can highlight that as well. And you know, just putting a few little descriptors in will give a good feel for the environment that they're coming into. Nicole, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree 100%. I think, as I touched on before, the more you can get your team involved, it's one thing for the company to say, you know, this is our culture, and have the, you know, the writing on the wall at the entrance behind reception. But unless your employees are singing from the same song sheet, I think, you know, you run into problems. And as I mentioned, that you know, nowadays people are savvy. They're going to find out. They're going to dig deeper. There are options out there, so they will dig deeper and make sure that they're joining an organization that fits with their, you know, their values. And you know, not to go off topic too much, but there's a lot more at stake now with regards certainly to new grads coming in. They care about the company. They want to align themselves with an organization that truly fits with their values and what they want to do in the world. And you know, they will find out if you're walking the walk. So I would get employees involved and have them write for you, put it, you know, have a blog on your website, or use a website like Food Grads where we have a blog, you know, and we can share your employee stories. I think that's authentic.
Right. And that's one comment that actually came in, was that the way a job description is written reveals a lot about the company culture. So I think maybe using those examples, employee stories, company stories, things you had mentioned about luncheons, or whatever way a company can engage or a business can engage their staff throughout, and how they walk the walk is really important and sometimes is often forgotten.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
so we'll let you keep going. Sorry for that sidebar, but
no,
lots
it's
of
great.
good questions coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the next thing that you want to be thinking about is, what are the skills and education that you need? And again, this is something that you want to give some thought to. The Canadian Agriculture HR Council, we've developed a number of job profiles and job description templates that you could take a look at to see what's reasonable for the type of or level of job that you're trying to hire. And those have been, all of those materials have been developed with industry, by industry. And that's, again, a good way to take a look, because as Nicole was saying earlier, you know, do you really need a master's in something, or is it really the on-the-job work experience that they're bringing to the table for this specific job that you're hiring for? So you want to make sure that you're clear about that requirement, but that you're also realistic about what is really required in the job as well. That will help you get the candidates coming forward that already have that skills and education that match what you're looking for. And as we've discussed a little bit already, those roles and responsibilities that you're describing, you really need to take some time to think about what they are. Make sure that you are being realistic about what those the roles and responsibilities are going to be. Taking the time to think about what you need in your operation if you haven't done so already, and then being able to describe to the candidate what those tasks and those activities are going to be. And this will not only help attract the right person, it will help retain the right person, because when they arrive, they're going to see that the job that they're going into is really what was shown to them before they joined your team. It's also going to help you, because it's going to help make sure that you're hiring the right person, that they're bringing the right things to the table, and that you've set the expectations for them so that they know what to do when they join your team. It will help with onboarding, and it will help with them growing within your organization as well. Again, we do have some roles and responsibility examples on our AgriSkills webpage through the Canadian Agriculture HR Council. That's a great way to pull some descriptive lines and things that have already been written by industry that describe various roles in a number of different commodity groups, a number of different occupations. And that can help you, again, make sure that you're describing your roles and responsibilities for the job in a way that's going to resonate with job seekers as well as what you need in your operation. The other thing I would just say before we move on is you also want to make sure that you're being realistic and not making sure that you're giving a good picture of what it's like to work in the job. And, you know, things like having to work weekends, or working longer hours during harvest season or planting season. Talking about things like that within your roles, responsibilities, and job descriptions, again, give an accurate picture of what you're looking for and what the roles and the responsibilities will be like. Will help you on the retention side once you have someone join your team. And salary. Now, this is always something that's near and dear to pretty much everyone's heart. As an employer, you're looking at your costs, and as a job seeker, you're looking at what you're going to be, how you're going to be compensated. And so eggcareers.com has done a little bit of research, and that research has shown that jobs with something listed in the salary field perform better with being able to attract the right people. So, you want to make sure that you're not just putting that it's negotiable or no information at all, or depends on experience. You want to be able to provide a bit of a range. Again, this helps give a picture of the level of skills that you're looking for and that experience as well. And so that they understand what level of work and level of job you're hiring for, if that's not already clear in the roles and responsibilities, skills, and education that you're asking for that role. Nicole, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, yeah, it's 100% important. I think, especially when you're dealing with new grads, they're new to the work world. They're not sure what to ask for. And the worst thing that an organization can do at any level is not put a description of what the salary is or the package is, and then effectively lowball them. Somebody might say, well, I'm open to working for X amount. if you do that, then again, this ties into retention. As soon as they hear perhaps to somebody in an equal role is making more money, or someone, in an equal company, doing the same job is making twice as much, you will lose the person ultimately. And the negativity that comes along with that, it's such a bad thing for your company's reputation. I've worked with so many companies in the processing side, and the ones that have the best reputation are truly the ones that have taken the time to work out a salary structure and the range, and they stick to that, and they don't look at it as an opportunity to hire one person at this level and one person at this level. They really get clear on what the value of that position, and they don't renege on that, even if the person potentially did ask for less. Look at the goodwill you're building to say, no, this role is worth this, you're the right candidate, and we're going to pay you this. That person's going to be singing the organization's praises, and that's so important, the reputation of the company and the industry as a whole.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it also helps save time when you have candidates coming in the door. I've certainly seen organizations where they don't go into that salary conversation or provide any real range at the very beginning, and they get a candidate and they think, oh, this is fantastic. They walk them through a few interviews, and they think, great, we're going to hire this person. They've got them excited about the organization as well. And then they have the salary conversation and realize that they're completely off base or not able to meet expectations. And so, again, having that information out front is going to help on all levels.
Yeah, and to your point, sorry, I was going to say, to your point,
okay.
Imagine going through 3 months of interviewing and you're really excited about this candidate. Remember, they're not only interviewing with you potentially. I think employers forget that. They could have 5 other processes going on. And to your point, if the conversation around salary, if the other organization is offering more money and a better package, etc., you could go through all of that, get your whole team excited, and then they just say no thank you, and that could even happen at the offer stage when you really think this is in the bag, this person's going to accept. As a recruiter, that's the worst thing that happens, but it happens all the time. No thanks, and the reality is they don't even need to necessarily share that they're in another process with other organizations. You ask them to be honest and open, that where else are they interviewing, just so I can be completely transparent with my client, the employer. But they don't have to be. There's no nothing saying they have to be. So again, those conversations, if you don't have them early on and you're not super clear right from the start, it can be such a time waste, unfortunately.
I think this is an example of where news travels fast. Often the good stories don't get shared, but the ones in regards to salary that aren't as attractive tend to hit the road and get a lot of publicity. So the one question that we've had come in is, how is the conversation about salaries different when you're speaking with somebody that is a farmer producer that's trying to harvest crops, a business that's perhaps trying to give supplies to the farmer, or whether it's the processing side of things in regards to a cheesemaker, or obviously somebody that is working on the logistics side of things. There's so many different roles within our value chain. So how is that conversation about salaries different depending on who the employer is?
Jen, you want to take that?
I would say that the conversation is, the basis and foundation of that conversation is always going to be the same. It depends a little bit, obviously, the salary ranges and the type of pay that you're talking about may be a little bit different, whether you're talking about hourly pay and overtime, or if it's more of a management role and you're talking about salary, and if it's a sales role, you might be talking about base salary plus commission, that type of thing. But the principles of that conversation remain the same regardless of what type of role you're looking to hire, is how I would see it.
And I would add that every company is different, and there is no set rule. They can offer what they want to offer, what they deem fit. And also you have to remember there's internal equity involved, so they will certainly look at what they're paying others in the organization and rate that position in line with you know, the other roles in the organization and who's in them and what they're being paid. So what one company is offering and doing versus another, company size, it's such a big range. And you know, we always tell candidates, don't talk about salary straight away. But you have to remember, you know, that they have done their homework, probably. You know, they know what sort of range they should be looking for. And graduates are listening to their professors. They are talking, they're getting lots of information from different resources about what to expect, what to ask for, to make sure they are paid their worth. So again, you know, I think you really have to make sure you're doing the right thing time and time again, and doing your homework and being as, you know, as open as you can about the whole subject of salary.
Yeah. Great. And so the other side of your compensation package is also benefits. And again, similar to salary, I think you want to be as clear and concise about the type of benefits that you're offering. This can be a great way also to help illustrate what type of workplace culture you have, depending on what those benefits are. And, you know, something that we're seeing, especially with the younger generation coming into the workforce, benefits aren't always, and salary aren't always the most important thing. And benefits don't always have to cost you money. So they can be things like the vacation time that you're offering, the type of insurance that they'll receive. For longer term, you might be looking at retirement packages, RSPs, and matching, that type of thing. But then what can really set you apart is those unique perks that you offer. Is it specialized training? Is it team building opportunities? Is it free lunches? You know, are you helping give money towards a gym membership or a wellness program? And even in that in the training side of things, you know, it may be things like having webinars or lunch and learns, or fitting those type of sharing of experience and skills within your own team. So those type of unique perks can really set yourself apart as an employer. They can give a very good illustration of the type of work culture that you have and what it's like to work with your team. And it can also help set you apart from a competitive offer from another employer as well. Nicole?
I was just going to jump in on the benefits subject and say that it's so true. Before, when I was recruiting full-time, I definitely saw a shift in the priorities. You know, the pension, the vacation, that wasn't necessarily, you know, insurance, that type of thing. That was not top of mind for a lot of the younger people coming into the industry. It was more about time off, flexibility. I want my life to fit around this job, or I want it to be intermingle. And I think COVID has really pushed that along a little bit in terms of what roles employers were holding on to, saying, you know, they had to be in the plant or in, you know, in the facility, in the office, versus what could be done from home. And I think it's time for employers to really look, you know, closely at that. The one that comes to mind is an example of it was a marketing position that I placed, and nobody reported directly to this individual, and she wanted to start earlier in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and finish 4 o'clock. And the plant manager was an older gentleman and kind of set in his ways and couldn't understand why she was requesting this. And her you know, information, you know, her life, she had dogs, she wanted to get home, she wanted to walk, and there was all these different things that fit her life, basically. But because no one had asked for that before, he took that as almost like she was being rude and insulting and not being grateful for the opportunity. And I think we truly need to lose that mindset. The younger generation come in, they are different. They will ask for what they want, you know, and be ready for that. And don't look at it necessarily as being rude or insulting. It's not that. It's just they've been raised differently. They've been told by their professors to ask for these things. You know, it doesn't mean they don't want the job. It's just they're asking for things that fit for them. So be ready for that. Be open to that, perhaps, and really examine the position to see, to your point, the free things, the perks that you can work into that position to truly hire the best candidate that's happy. You know, they're happy. It's a win-win. If they're really walking away going, this is awesome, they gave me this, you know, and it didn't cost the organization anything, then it's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, and even on the production side, primary production side of things, you know, as planting season happens and, you know, you're not getting those weekends off and it's just impossible. This, through the benefits, is another way to demonstrate that the realistic aspects of the job, where there's going to be times where you're not going to have your weekend off, you're going to work later, but these are the things in return that you're going to be able to benefit from. You know, maybe if you're working late, we're bringing you dinner to the field. Or if, you know, you're working consecutive weekends over the spring, you have an option to have carry those days forward and have a bit more time off when it's quieter. But having that type of information and the benefits will also help give a good picture of what the job's really like, and how you're recognizing some of the demands at certain periods of the season, and how you're ensuring that your employees are taken care of throughout the year. And so, yes, this just gives, this actually was pulled from the Canadian HR Review, and it just provides the top 6 steps to compete against other employers. So again, coming from a bit of research of job seekers that were out there and taking a look at what is most important. And you know, that positive workplace culture is high on the list, followed by, you know, flexible hours. And again, in primary production, that's not always possible, but how do you make that work within your environment? And the benefits. Compensation is, you know, 4th on the list, where we often think that that's going to be most important, but you could be the highest paying employer in your area, but if you have a really negative work environment or a bad workplace culture, it won't matter, because you won't be able to keep your employees, and your reputation as an employer in your area will be, it won't matter how much you're paying.
And I'll just jump in here. So often we think about large employers with large benefit packages, but at the end of the day, I think similar to what you said, no matter your audience, with a job description, it is very similar of what you should include. It's the same when it comes to how you can offer benefits. Short and long-term motivators are not always related to salary, as you said. We often see that being recognized, having responsibility, things like that are much longer term motivators versus a salary or compensation package. So that's, at the end of the day, no matter how small or large, you can have an impact with your employees and recruiting the right people.
That ties into career advancement, you know, the training, those conversations. Certainly for the next generation of food professionals coming in, that's, you know, there's tons of studies to show that feedback is so critical. You know, they want to hear from you if they're doing a good job, if they're doing a bad job, you know, but that communication is key, and certainly helps towards retention. You know, if they feel valued and they are progressing, then they'll stay longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes, I think, at any level of occupation that you're hiring for sure. Yeah. Great. And so with all this in mind, you know, you've taken the time to document all of these things that we've gone through. You do want to make sure that you give those finishing touches and take time to ensure your own quality control. Make sure you don't have spelling or grammar issues, that the bullet points are all lined up, it looks good. Because at the end of the day, again, this is an illustration of the quality of work that you're looking for from your employees as well. And you want to ensure that you're giving that picture that of professionalism, of taking the time, and that this is important to you, that you've taken the time to ensure your job descriptions are very well done and professional as well, and that you're not putting something out there that may have mistakes in it, because it doesn't reflect well on your own organization either if you're putting things out that aren't polished off. And so I just wanted to also touch on a few things. I know, if you've not done a job description before, you're a little bit new to this. The Canadian Agricultural HR Council has an HR toolkit. It is free access for Ontario, for OFA members. And in that toolkit, you'll find all sorts of tools and templates, so you don't have to start from scratch on most things related to HR management. But it also includes things like a template for job descriptions. And maybe you're not using this template when you're going out there to put your job ad out, but it provides you a template to think about the information that you need to provide in your job description. And you can fill that out and think about all the different levels that you need to add in. We also, as I mentioned earlier, we have job description content through the Agra HR Toolkit as well. It's also available through our Agra Skills page through our website. And you can click on, there's 4 different levels that the job descriptions are there for. It's for a number of commodity groups, as I mentioned, but you can click on whatever level you're looking to hire at, and you can pull information. If we just go to the next slide. There's lots of information that you can pull, whether it's you're looking for how to describe the task that you want the person to do, the type of competencies, the skills, experience, education that you're looking for, and then some ideas about what's going to help attract them to the job. So again, just giving you some support in how to pull together that job description, specifically more so for primary production. And this is an example of what a job description can look like. So you're, outlining what those daily responsibilities will include. You're talking about what an ideal candidate would look like. And in that, you can provide a bit on the education side, the experience, and the type of characteristics that you're looking for in the applicant as well. Again, and just going into that level of detail around the knowledge, skills, and abilities, and making sure that this is something that is applicable to the industry and not just work on your in your environment. So again, we talked a little earlier about not using abbreviations or not using internal terminology that's only specific to your operation. Make sure that the words you're using in these descriptions are things that people outside your organization can relate to and see themselves in. Great, and Nicole, I hand it over to you.
That was so clear. I think that it's definitely given a great overview of what's needed. In terms of ways to increase interest, we didn't really mention it. I don't think we've covered it, but even job titles. I think it can show how progressive an organization is if they're thinking outside the box in terms of the title, because I think titles aren't always important. Perhaps as you progress in your career, you understand that more so. But when you're first starting out, it's kind of cool to be able to say you have this, different title rather than something overused and boring that can still reflect what the job is. And I think it's important, as you mentioned, I think earlier on, Jen, that because candidates are searching on keywords, and they're going to be searching on all different job titles too. So you won't lose people based on the title necessarily. You might gain some because they really think it's a cool sounding title. But as long as the keywords are in the job description, you're going to find them. And I know from the flip side, when I'm working with students and grads, we tell them that, every company uses different job titles. So make sure on your resume, you've included all the things you like to do and you want to do and all your skills and education, because recruiters will be using a keyword search as well. So, it works both ways. Excuse me. Again, ways to increase interest, I think it's using the technology around you as well. If you want to showcase your organization as progressive, make sure you have a website that is functional, that you know, is new. It's not something that, you know, obviously is 15 years old and hasn't been tweaked. Again, if you're trying to attract the best people into your organization that are forward thinking, that are tech savvy, that's going to put them off if the website isn't reflective on the culture of the organization, the progressive way of thinking. So those are things I would definitely look at in terms of the blogging, as I mentioned. Invite people to ask about your organization. I think, again, that shows authenticity. What we're putting out there is true and it's real. And, you know, if you need to, you can reach out to people on LinkedIn. We welcome you to do that. Again, if you're nervous to do that, that reflects on why are you nervous to do that, and you really need to sort of look back at the organization and figure a few things out. People will figure those things out very quickly once they join, and again, you're dealing with them leaving. So you know, it's an entire process from start to end. Work-life balance, I think, you know, that's it's a term that's used now, you know, it's been used for years and years and years. I think it's just a balance in general. You know, gone are the days where people aren't working into the evening, everyone has a phone, everyone has access to their email. But I think that, again, I mentioned COVID, it's definitely pushed us forward, pushed organizations forward that weren't open to the working from home flexibility. You know, they weren't open to that. Well, everyone was forced to do that unless they physically had to be at, you know, at the organization. So I think that's a good thing. I heard from lots of employers in the past that said, no, we just don't do that. And it would put candidates off, great candidates off. And it was unnecessary. You know, I think people need to measure productivity, not how many hours they're sat behind a desk. That doesn't really show anything. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions around ways to increase if people have ideas or have you know, want to run ideas by us. I think that could be cool.
And Nicole, just add to, you mentioned the website and making sure it's up to date. I think it's important to note that, you know, even 10 years ago, having a website was it was an expensive endeavor, and having it designed was expensive, and keeping it up to date was expensive, and all that kind of thing. But now there's so many free platforms, or almost free platforms. It's almost like click and play type of templates. You don't have to have a lot of information up there, but you can look really professional and current without having to spend $5,000 on your webpage.
And the same with social media. I think if you're not there, it speaks volumes. You don't have to be, you know, tweeting or posting every hour, but that's definitely an amazing opportunity to offer something to a student or grad. I mean, they are born in the digital age. This stuff is second nature. They already have networks. Why not bring a new grad in if you haven't got that stuff set up? Give them that remote opportunity. You know, right now, you might not necessarily invite them into the office, but give them a project remotely, and they could have your social channels up and running. And like I said, it's second nature to them. My mind boggles at the things my kids can do, and they're not even in the work world yet. So imagine those new grads that, you know, could come into your organization and make a huge impact.
I think one of the things you mentioned is about youth asking questions and not necessarily seeing that as a demand or a negative thing. I think you're right that this generation, especially coming up, is being trained that questions are good. So I think as employers, whether you be on the farm or in a larger business organization, it's really important to have an open mind. I will use the example of even hiring students within our own organization. I'm from a farm background. I think sometimes we have our blinders on with our terminology, our language that we use, and we need to take a step back. And that starts with the job description to make sure that not only are we being clear with our communication and our description, we're being inclusive with how we do describe the role. And then I think the other thing that both of you have mentioned, the job title it's really important. We see a lot of really sad job titles. And if we can work together and address that, yes, it is an issue, and perhaps saying, even though there are hard jobs out there physically, putting in the job title, working 92 hours a day probably isn't the way to attract candidates. So if we can challenge kind of our thinking a little bit, that's really important, because just some of the things you've said, both of you, you've nailed it on the head, that these are the ways to increase interest, and we provide food to the industry or to the world. So it's a pretty important job, which leads me to my question. A lot of the roles are changing the world. How do we communicate the fact that harvesting a crop versus processing a product is something that can be really a satisfying job? How can we describe that in a job description?
Do you want?
Go ahead, Nicole. Yeah.
I think, again, I think use technology. You can put a link. Most job descriptions aren't, pinned to a wall. You can put a link on a digital job description that invites the job searcher to review a video or a blog or something. And I think it's so important. I was part of a road trip where we went to a pasta facility, and this young guy was talking about how everyone around him is old. I mean, that was his terminology, but I've got a job here for life. I'm being mentored. This is amazing. People think that I come into work and I'm doing things manually. Everything's automated. And he was talking about it. He was so animated, and said, basically, I'm set here. There's no one above me. I'm just learning from my superiors, and I have a job here for life. And he was, you can't fake that. It was him speaking, loving his job, and sharing that with us. And if I was hiring at that organization, I would put that video within the job description if it was relevant. If it was talking about how we are highly automated. I don't think I think people do have this misconception, certainly on the processing side, hairnets factories. On the farming side, you have all these preconceived, everyone's wearing dungarees, or what do you call them, overalls, and that's my Britishness, overalls, and driving a tractor, and it's not like that. And I think unless you get people speaking and that are in those roles, the companies aren't necessarily the best to share that. It has to come from the employees themselves. And use the technology. It's so easy to create a quick video and add it to the job description.
Yeah, I would agree. And we talked a little bit about social media, and if your farm has a Facebook page, it's easy to update, like, this is what we're doing today, and maybe you highlight a certain employee that's doing what they're doing in the day. It's an easy way to show the technology that's being used on the farm as well, and what a day in a life is like. So and linking that back in the job description is a really good way to give a picture of what it's all about and see how it connects with the rest of the world. And there's some good videos out there that kind of show that connection to how our food supply connects to the world. But if you want to show really what it is like on your farm or in your operation, you can do it pretty simply through a little bit of video and a little bit of sharing real life experience.
And just to add, I think it's important to show the negative as well. If you say everything's tickety-boo and the job is just a breeze, then again you're going to obviously mislead candidates. I think it's okay to say these are the downside of this job. You mentioned shift work, the night shift, or there's pardon my French, there was an article I wrote, there's a shit sandwich, right? There's always something that's not great about your job. It doesn't matter what job it is, whether it's data or whether it's the admin side of it. There's something, and it's just which sandwich do you want to eat? Which one works for you? What can you bear versus what you can't bear? And especially in the food industry, I think you got to get really real about the negatives. If the plant is cold, freezing cold, and part of your job is working in that environment, you have to share that, and you have to take them in and show them what it's about. You can't say, oh, it's wonderful, and then they start on the roll and realize it's freezing cold and they literally physically can't do it. So you've got to share all the negative as well as the positive. I think that's just about, again, being authentic and open and truthful. But you'll still find the right candidate that way. Someone will do that. Someone, you know, if you think, even if you think it's the worst, you know, position to be in, and you don't want to sort of project that as you're interviewing, or even through the job description, because someone might say, ah, it's no big deal. I don't mind that. Everyone fits somewhere.
Yeah. I will just add to that too, just from experience I've had in the last couple of weeks. My teenage son is looking for work in agriculture, and he has one job lined up for later, but he thought maybe he'd like to go pick strawberries from now until his other job starts. And I came across a strawberry farm that had a really great descriptions on, you know, this is what it's like to pick strawberries. Strawberries are low to the ground, so you're going to be hunched over picking, like, but it was done in such a way that it was like, these are the facts, but, you know, if that's good for you, great. You're not, but this is what it's going to be like when you get to work. And, you know, we really like people that work on Saturdays. If you want to work on Saturdays, let us know, you know, that kind of thing. And I thought it was an excellent way to get that realistic picture of the negatives and the positives in a real practical kind of way. So
I love this example because I saw my nephew on the weekend, and that is what he is doing this summer, is picking strawberries. He is about 6'2", and when I asked him how it was going, he said, "I'm making money." Yeah. So I think we forget sometimes that there are very driven individuals out there that at the end of the day are looking to just for honesty with what the job entails, and they're ready to work and make money. So often we get clouded with so many descriptors and explanations, but we need to kind of get back to the basics. Is there are lots of good people out there. We just need to be transparent with them, like you said, Nicole, and then like you said, Jennifer, just really helping them along and showing them what is entailed with the job. So that's great. Any other things to add to that question?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think just the final thing is, how should we talk about technology in agriculture and food to help people with their biases that they have about the food and agriculture industries? How do we utilize technology in our conversations, our job descriptions, in a positive way?
Sure. So I'm not sure if that is referring to using technology to get the information out about the jobs, or talking about how there's automation, innovation, and technology.
I think it's that part there, Jen.
Yeah.
So, if you could touch on that, yes.
Yeah. So I think, again, using those descriptors and talking about the type of technology and tools that are used on the farm, and giving that description of what it's like to work in the role will be helpful. What we talked about as far as like little videos and photos and sharing of what it's like to work day to day, and highlighting those tools. I know there's some really good farmers on Twitter that I follow that, you know, they'll take a picture of their cab and they've got 3 screens in that picture, and they're like, you know, I'm out planting today and this is what it looks like. So, you know, talking about it in the job descriptions, but also showing it in, you know, pictures, social media, job videos, I think is a really good way, because for sure there's lots of people that still think farming is, you know, really more manual than it is moving in. I mean, there's still the manual work for sure, but the automation, the digitalization, and innovation that's happening needs to really be highlighted, because that's how you're going to attract more people that don't necessarily come from ag backgrounds, but would definitely consider a career in ag if they understood what it's truly like and where the industry is going on that front.
I would add, you know, they have to show us behind the curtain. Even when I did a roadshow a couple of years ago, it was really tough to get processors to let us in. You know, there's a lot of, and I understand with health and safety, you know, they don't want to let people in the plant necessarily. because if something happens, then, you know, the recall, anything like that. I mean, it's so complicated what goes on in a food processing facility. And I think up until now, has really been a lack of, not that they don't want to share, but they just haven't. So people don't know what's going on. You have these stock pictures that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years, and they haven't been updated. And so they don't necessarily portray what the truth is, what it really is like at these organizations. And yes, there's the reality of a plant situation, but if you're looking at the office side of things, the corporate side of things, you know, the offices look like, you know, out of Google, some, you know, like Google offices. I mean, that is the reality now. Those changes have been made. I just don't know if the industry themselves have done a great job of pushing that forward. And that's really a huge opportunity to change the narrative and the perception of the food industry. There's so much fake information out there. And I think truly it's down to the industry, us, to get the real information out there. And again, I talk to students all the time. Talk about your program, talk about why you're in it, talk about your career aspirations. Why do you want to work in food? One of the biggest, most impactful interviews I did was with an animal welfare officer. And it changed my view of things, because she got into animal welfare because she loves animals. You know, and I think there's this misconception that animals are treated badly, and, you know, all this stuff. You guys know more on the ag side. And it's just not true. And it's so unfortunate, and it puts people off, and it creates a negativity towards the industry. I mean, even recently with COVID, food companies were essential workers. So these outbreaks aren't a reflection on bad organizations. They're a reflection on the fact that these were the people that were going out to work. They weren't able to stay home and stay safe. They were going out to work. And in certain facilities, they are shoulder to shoulder. There is more close contact. That's the nature of the job. But there's also a ton where it's not close contact and there is automation. And we didn't hear about any of those. We just heard the horror stories, you know, coming out of the meat plants. So I think, again, communication is so important. You know, answering questions, being open, not being defensive. You know.
Absolutely. Well, no, I thank you both for joining us today. That's part of what we're trying to do here with this partnership that we have joined together with Feed Your Future. And Nicole, you being with us here from Food Grads, and obviously Jennifer, you being here with us from the Canadian Ag Human Resource Council. These are the toolkits that we've put together for exactly that reason, trying to address the needs in the agriculture and food industry when it comes to attracting employees, educating of all the wonderful opportunities that are available, as well as just trying to help guide people. So we do have a series of 9 virtual career fairs and 9 webinars coming up. You will see these ladies again because they have a wealth of knowledge that we'd like to pull on. And again, thank you. It takes a lot of time to walk through some of this, but as I said to you, you don't know how much knowledge you have until you start being asked questions. So I appreciate your expertise. The Feed Your Future campaign, this is where you go to find out more information as an employer, and also obviously through the social media sites. So please look up the Canadian Ag Human Resource Council. There's lots of great tools, as well as Food Grads websites, because they are all in this together with us, trying to highlight the opportunities in the food industry as well as the agriculture industry. So thank you both for being here today. And obviously we will go on with our team that's looking to support this initiative and go from there. So thank you very much to you both.
Thank you for having us. And yeah, my pleasure.
Okay,
Yeah.
take care.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.